Welcome everyone. We have a special adventure today. We're off to Cuba. And here it is. With us, to be our consultant for this Cuban expedition, is 8-Bit Picky. Welcome, 8-Bit.
Hello.
All right. I've got to set up the stream for Discord quickly. I may have forgotten to do that since we have channels. There we go. That should work.
Bingo.
And let's make sure that's not sending audio. Nope, that's fine. And I need to set stream to you as well. There we go. Okay, that should all be fine now. Right, so 8-Bit has told me that this could be the entire stream, but we'll see. The Cuba issue is, of course, very interesting. And 8-Bit, I believe your family is from there.
Yes, a little quick backstory for like the little lore about 8-Bit Picky. I was born in Miami, Florida. My parents escaped Cuba the moment that Fidel Castro came into power and betrayed all the promises he made to the Cuban people. So the way how my parents left it, that from my understanding, my mother got to the U.S. through a sponsorship from an uncle of hers who is already a U.S. citizen. So there was like a sponsorship going on, and she managed to immigrate into the United States and become a U.S. citizen. And I believe that's the same thing of my father, but my father died 10 years ago. So I didn't really get much of his story because my parents were like at odds at the end. But enough about that. But I can tell you this, that both my parents hated Fidel Castro and everything that he has done. Ever since they took the Castro regime came into power, they nationalized everything from property to wealth, ownership. Like, you cannot have your own business. The government has to control your business. And whatever revenue you make, it goes to the government. So essentially, communism is cancer.
Yes. And as Nacho says, every Cuban I've met feels the same. I did watch a little YouTube documentary, just a relatively short one, just on a sort of summary of the Cuban history. So I'm not that well informed, but I know a little bit. There have been many waves of deportations of emigrations from Cuba by exactly the people in Cuba who are most against the regime. And as far as I've been told, the regime did this deliberately. It let them go so as to have a more compliant populace there. And so a lot of the people you probably heard that from, Nachos, are exactly the ones who wanted to leave, because they're only allowed to leave at certain time, like every time the regime says that they can. But this is one of the reasons why it's maintained its existence for so long, because they've been doing things like this. Up until the early 90s, it was maintained very much so by the Soviet Union, and since then it's been more tenuous. But Marco Rubio is either, I think, Cuban himself or a descendant of Cubans. To my impression, that he, one of his main issues in getting into politics, if not maybe the main motivation, was to finally topple the Cuban regime. And given the close ties between Cuba and Venezuela, and given Trump implemented and then maintained some pretty serious sanctions, even bigger than the ones that were already there, against Cuba, I think Rubio is getting his way there. Probably something that they agreed to for him to be part of the Trump admin. So Marco sent Hassan Piker.
That's a good theory, because I haven't heard word from him since after the whole fiasco with the flotilla.
Flotilla? I'm not sure I know about that one.
It's this event. The event was called like the flotilla to Cuba, or the Nuestra America. Basically, it was an event hosted by Code Pink.
Oh, right.
But I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead and finish, and I'll just explain.
No, that's all right. You go ahead with that, because I remember something about that. I don't mind what order we do whatever you have for us today in, by the way. So go ahead.
Okay. So basically, I mean, during the time when all this has happened, I just got back from MegaCon Orlando. I had a blast. A little more insert. I did had second breakfast with the hobbits. But back to the current events. So as this unfolded about what happened in Cuba, I've been saving, bookmarking all the posts, and especially the party that went on in Cuba while the rest of the country went to blackout. So, like going back to this flotilla, this is very suspicious. So this event hosted by Code Pink. Supposedly it was a humanitarian to bring supplies. Like supposedly they said they brought 50 tons of aid, including food, medicine, and whatnot. But you can ask any Cuban about resources like such as AIDS, any supplies and medicine. All that gets confiscated by the government and then repurpose it, charging their own citizens 3 times worth the supplies. So it's not a surprise that we would see these type of items that are supposed to be given to the citizens directly are being sold to whatever amount of money that the Cuban people cannot afford. So no matter what this fucking bitch, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go into a tyrant. This fucking bitch from Code Pink thought that she was helping people, was not. She was just virtual signaling the whole entire time, always promoting her brand, her organization, only to paint herself as a bad guy, but as a good guy. I'm sorry, I'm going ahead of myself, but this woman is purely evil. Like she's the reincarnate of this aristocrat of this videos is going around of this white aristocrat tossing food scraps to the children. That's
Do we have
basically
a picture of her? I know that
oof.
there were some articles posted for this a little earlier, so I can find it.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
It would have been in. It would have been in.
Brace yourself, Cobalt.
Pit 1.
She is an actual literal witch.
Wow, I can believe it. Okay, scroll past all the real nachos pictures, and okay, here it is. $433,000 of medical supplies, apparently.
All right, this is her, Medea Benjamin.
Let me open some of the other links that people sent me for this.
Now, more on the communist convoy
Speaking of morons,
to Cuba featuring.
Cease. Okay. DHS is detaining activists returning from Cuba, apparently. According to this link. All right, let me save them for later. All right. Yeah, that's a picture of her. Thank you. So yeah, so should we start at the beginning of what happened? My understanding is that there's been this rivalry between the US and Cuba for many years, and since Trump amplified the sanctions in his first term, Biden then kept them, and then Trump maintained them still, and I think maybe even amplified them more in this term. Cuba is now struggling financially, especially because there was ties between them and Venezuela has now been toppled. So the economic situation it's a socialist country, so it's never going to be good. But they've been relying on exports of sugar, I think, mostly, and maybe some other things as well. Maybe I can't remember if there's oil as well. But they've been relying on these things, which are getting more and more difficult, especially with the US sanctions. So the economic situation is just so bad now to the point that there's regular blackouts in Cuba. I believe that's the sort of backstory to it. All started with a fella named Marl Karks. Yeah, he's the origin. So, would that be a decent summary? Is the blackouts mostly just due to the economic struggle?
Well, Cuba has always had a blackout ever since the start of the Communist Party. It's just that now with the social media and how instant and just by luck that the Cuban people that have access to internet to post what's going on in Cuba. Like, for example, the whole blackout thing, now that everybody's paying attention, it's all because of ever since the organization arrived in Cuba. Let me just find this link. So as soon as the party arrived, they, including Hassan Piker, they hosted this huge party. Let me just find it. I also tag died because one of the guests that was part of the event was an Irish group called Kneecap.
Right. That
And
sounds very friendly.
I pinged Guy like, hey, like one of your people, your traders, decided to throw a party on a country that doesn't have any electricity. So and there are confirmation that as soon as the rave party began, any nearby hospitals, especially patients that were on ventilators, died or severely like survived.
Hours after Irish rappers Kneecap blasted the amps and turned a Havana concert into a rave for Code Pink activists chanting anti-blockade slogans, reports claim local hospital went dark and ventilator patients died. Meanwhile, members of the communist flotilla stayed in 5-star hotels with the lights blazing and AC running. No one cashes in on capitalism faster than the clowns preaching communism. Yeah, that's fair. Friend and Cuban notified that every single patient in that hospital that was on ventilators died tonight. Yeah. Now, to be clear, with how bad communism usually is, you would kind of expect that as soon as the Soviet Union stopped propping up Cuba, it would collapse. And it didn't. There was some degree of sensible management from a purely pragmatic perspective that kept them going. But this is the end result. This is what socialism always converges towards. Is you don't have enough power to keep ventilators on. I mean, one of the things that that Cuba prided itself on for a while under the communist regime was good medical system, which I know is not really true, but there is some truth to it. They had some high quality doctors, or at least claimed to, and now even that is not being maintained.
Yeah, I sorry to say, but that was all a lie. Granted, there are Cubans who study become doctors, but unfortunately, the whole propaganda that they have an excellent medical program for their citizens, it's all a lie. Unless you are part of the government, which you will have excellent health services. But as far as just the regular Cuban citizens, all that the doctors will tell you is pray that you live in another day, and that you'll never like catch all these diseases, which has been reported that a lot of Cuban citizens are suffering from dengue and other mosquito type of diseases, and in worst case worse, without proper sewage management or water system. I mean, you can pretty much guess like what you're going to pick up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, indeed. Okay. So, what else do we have on this? Coping cargo plane medical supplies. So, was there any truth to these medical supplies claims?
I'm sure that there was, although you got to think about it. Were those medical supplies strictly for the visitors, because we all know that Cuba don't have really much of anything, or was all those supplies confiscated by the government?
Interesting. Yeah, Wolf, as far as I heard, at least internally, the claims were that they had the literacy rates went from some tiny percentage, or I think it was originally it was low anyways. I think 60%, something like that, up to 95 within a few years under the communists. And that may be completely bullshit, but it may also, if it were true, it's simply, yeah, you can do that with a planned economy, but you will still converge towards losing everything, as they appear to be doing now. Every commie everywhere claims this, yeah.
Yeah, also, I like to add the whole literacy rates. You can also connect to poor nutrition.
Yeah, that is often the case. That's one of there's very few things that you can do to a person to increase their IQ, but there are several things you can do to lower it, and poor nutrition is one of them. So
Now, more on the communist convoy to Cuba, featuring pampered Western commies, including Hassan Piker, who has been accused of throwing food at Cuban children. The goal of this whole exercise is to embarrass the American government, the Trump administration, blaming them for Cuba's many issues. But the Cubans themselves are fighting back against this narrative, including this gentleman who had this message for the leftists.
You rather see people keep suffering because why? So Donald Trump doesn't get the credit. This is not about Donald Trump. It's about somebody standing up finally and standing up to a communist regime, a dictatorship.
Kosher.
it's easy, I think, for Hassan and people around him to just say the only reason that Cuba is failing is because of American intervention and messing with them. The issue with that is, look at how many people want to leave. The only reason it's still there is because everyone who might otherwise have risen up and killed the leadership were allowed to just leave, and then did. Because they're right next to the US. There's somewhere for them to go. You ask the Cuban, are there more, or it's close to the same number of Cubans in the US than in Cuba? You ask the Cubans in the US whether they think communism's working there. Have Sam hired on with a group of cameramen to hunt down Hassan in Cuba. Yeah, I mean, Cuba's still in real life, so he'd be keeping his promise. Every commie everywhere claims, yeah, indeed.
He also said the power grid has been cactus for 40 years in Cuba. Decades of communist rule have completely devastated the country.
Is cactus the Australian word for bad? I haven't personally encountered that. It's interesting.
And he's still got family in Cuba, and obviously he wants to see it free. I'm just shocked that these socialists, Western socialists, aren't paying any attention. They're not reading the room at all about what Cubans want. The fact that more than 1 million of them have fled the country because they don't want to live under a communist dictatorship.
And they are always reliably center-right, always. People who fled Eastern Europe, people who fled Cuba, understand what the logical endpoint is of this.
The Hassan Piker types would probably describe them as counter-revolutionaries who don't believe in the country. So they have to cast those people as traitors and saboteurs, even though there's a lot of them.
To also add what Hassan Piker would say, that anybody who's against the revolution are part of Israel.
I'm sure he would say that, yeah.
But just to add, like, you don't have to be a right wing to say that this is bad. Like, what's happening in Cuba is really bad. When you give the government absolute control, this is the end result.
Indeed. Why am I not seeing the metrics on Twitter changing? It's weird. It's stuck at 0. I mean, it may be that just no one's looking at it, but I suspect that's not the case. It's odd. Oh well, I'll have to fix it later. Coming to kill him in his hotel room in Havana. Here's hoping.
Sliding scale of having more and more authoritarian government, sliding into that. Cuba is a poster child of what that can do, 40 years of pure communist regime. They also relied a lot on external allies like Russia for oil, Iran, Venezuela. That's drying up for all the reasons we know, which is exacerbating that problem, and then the US embargo. So it seems like Cuba is going to fall, quote unquote, and then we will see what the Trump agenda does or how they handle that, because that is part of their strategy of hemispheric stability.
That would be a triumph if Cuba falls, the communist dictatorship falls without a shot being fired. That would be something to celebrate. Kosher Gator, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Yes, a lot of people would be disrupted by it, but it would be much better in the long term for them, assuming something else replaces it. You only really keep up a socialist dictatorship by outside forces helping it. So if it's in a position where some other nation benefits from it being an ally, then it'll be propped up. North Korea is beneficial to China. because it can be its mad threat arm in the region. So China props up North Korea. Cuba's was beneficial to the Soviet Union, but now that doesn't exist anymore. So it's pretty much just a matter of time, but it is still surprising that it's lasted for 35 years. I believe that's the correct maths, after the fall of the Soviet Union. Fair enough, Tribute. All right. See what else we have on this. Yes. Do you have any more sources for us, 8-Bit?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I got tons. I'm sorry that they're not really in order, but I'm just going by what I have. Sorry, what I have at the moment. So let's hope this works. Sent you a link.
Instagram.
Yeah, because I can't do TikTok. This social influencer, she's great. She talks about more in depth about what's going on in Cuba, and she debunks the whole U.S. blockade. She actually got it face to face to the Code Pink organizer.
Okay. Venezuela was propping up Cuba, yes, dead end, but Venezuela was not particularly wealthy. They were having trouble making use of their own oil supplies, even.
So we're on the plane now, getting ready to go to Havana, Cuba. We have this entire charter flight full of people, and as important, full of medicines, and we're so...
Oh, I see.
See, that is the kind of on-screen layout that I don't want to do. With the one that I've designed, I don't want more than half the screen to be my face, especially when the reactions are as cringe as hers are.
And as important, full of medicines, and we're so...
Oh, I see we meet again, Code Pink. Because in 2024, I actually confronted that woman outside of Capitol Hill.
To do with the embargo.
You want to get...
Nothing to do with the embargo, that people are in jail because I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that woman has been doing this for years. At this point, she's a professional protester. And she, ironically, can make money doing the very thing that gets Cubans in jail. Because not once in her activism I have ever heard her talk about the Cuban dictatorship at all. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't care about the Cuban people. She cares about upholding an ideology. An ideology that lets her get on that plane comfortably in a first-class ticket, by the way, lets her pass through customs, accepts her entrance. Meanwhile, there are actual Cubans who are exiled that are not allowed to even enter their own country. And then to be paraded around as if Cuba is some vintage theme park for their socialism ideas. And the craziest thing is that she thinks that we don't care about our families in Cuba, when the reality is, if it wasn't for us sending things, sending money, sending regagas, sending food, medicine to our families in Cuba, that place would be sinking a long time ago. Spare me your fucking whitewash bullshit. Padre vida, si yo soy gusana.
That is basically the picture of the situation that I had, yes. Hello, Vil. Downs lady. I don't know if she's Downs. I think she's Hispanic.
No, she's down.
Oh, is she?
Typical. Well, not really. No, not her. I'm sorry. I'm talking about Code Pink.
This woman.
No. Yolandi, she's based. No, what I'm talking about is Code Pink. It becomes apparent. There's a strong pattern that whenever there's destruction of the Western world, it always starts with liberal white women in power, or with any social media hold, whether it be Code Pink or the other fucking retard Greta Thunberg. It's always them.
And in both cases, they have Downs.
Yes. Well, one specifically.
Well, yeah. Either way, fetal alcohol syndrome for Greta, and I don't know with her. I don't know. Maybe there is as well. I wonder if they were getting US aid. People doing it always making a shit ton of money from it. Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, her opinion seems pretty accurate from what I know about the situation. Do you have anything else? Let's have a look at this. Is the US actually blockading Cuba, or is it just sanctioning it?
Now getting ready to go.
Because I thought it was just sanctioning. I wouldn't necessarily mind if it was blockading either, but... Oh, for goodness sake. Archie, don't respond to just a link. That doesn't make sense, mate. I should probably turn Archie off for the stream, actually. I'll do that now.
Yeah, Archie, go to sleep.
Yeah, go to sleep, Archie. Okay, that's done. Right.
So we're on the plane now, getting ready to go to Havana, Cuba. We have this entire charter flight full of people.
Yeah, how did he squeeze past that ass? Is this video AI? I
No.
think it is. Actually, I don't know, maybe not. But some of the text. How did he squeeze past that ass? Look.
Charter flight
He squeezed past it so quickly. Oh, the video is sped up. Okay, that probably is why.
Yeah.
As important, full of medicines, and we're so excited to be with the Cuban people and show our support, show our solidarity, and to say that this cruel, inhumane, barbaric policy of the Trump administration,
which Biden maintained,
has to go. So we're on the...
Yeah. So taking the supplies to Cuba, the thing is, I'm pretty sure that Trump's embargo or sanctions either way allow for food, medical supplies, and one other essential thing. I can't remember what the third one was. Allow for those, there's explicit exceptions for those in the sanctions, I think. So that's what they're taking here. So a lie by implication, a false premise, if that's the case. All right, let's see what else we have. Keep any sources coming that you want us to look at, by the way, a bit. Her face looks like it started melting in the suns as well. Oh, yeah, it does a bit. I wonder, what is this woman's name? Because some people may be beginning to wonder if there's something more to that. The US just can't buy from Cuba. That is basically an embargo, yes. I think. Okay, what was this one?
My name is Medea Benjamin. We're very excited about getting to Cuba.
Medea Benjamin.
Yeah, I just looked her up. She's well connected.
American political activist. New York is...
Oy vey! I did not expect that.
God damn it. I think that's the first time I've actually looked up someone for early life before I knew whether they were Jewish, and it turns out that they are. God damn it. Yep, she's of Jewish descent, lads. Oh dear. No shekel, Sherlock. And wealthy family as well. Oh, Medea is not her real name. She renamed herself after the Greek mythological character. Yet a feminist interpretation of the Greek tragedy suggesting that Medea had never killed her children and was only blamed for it by patriarchal traditions. Holy shit, this woman's awful. Yeah, that pretty much sums her up. Yeah, Vil, I had a vague sense that that there might be a physiognomy check there, but I wasn't sure, so I figured I'd check.
Cuba, it's mixed feelings, because on the one hand, we know how much the Cuban people are suffering. We saw, at least it made some news, the fact that there was an outage of electricity on the whole island, but they've been having those kind of blackouts constantly, and people are not able to get the kind of surgeries they need. The incubators are stopped functioning.
It's interesting that she's mentioning this, because she's fine to mention this because her narrative is it's all Trump's fault. The problem is that there have been sanctions on Cuba for a long time. So she can make that argument. It's difficult to disprove. They've only got worse. They've only got stronger recently. But I don't know. It is kind of hard to prove that. Lampshade jokes.
When there's no electricity to run even the generators. So it's a miserable situation. And we're going to say that is just not what we, the American people, want. This is not in our name. We've seen opinion polls that say that that's not what.
She sounds like Pelosi, which is probably because she's from New York. I wonder if Pelosi has a Jewish lineage as well.
What the people want. And so it's great to see all these people stepping forward to say we're going to support
Wait,
for the
Russell,
Cuban
go back a little bit. Go back a little bit.
All right.
Could have sworn I seen her profile. That would have signified, like, okay, when she turns her face, you can tell by the nose.
American people want. This is not in our name. We've seen opinion polls that say that that's not what the people want, and so.
Oh, there we go.
The footage is a bit choppy. Wow, that's sharp. That's a big nose.
It's great to see all these people stepping.
Say, Papa, you're arriving just in time. We've just done an early life check on this activist, and it turns out she's Jewish.
Forward to say we're going to support for the Cuban people and our 150% opposition to what Donald Trump and Marco Rubio and the cruel Congress people from Southern Florida are doing.
So,
wait, what? What did you say about South Florida, bitch? Fucking rat.
Go, kill 8-bit. So, yeah, it's all premised on the what the Trump admin's doing. Everywhere that socialism is done, you get the same kind of decay. So the fact that sanctions are being used in this case is probably not because of the sanctions that it's happening, but it is again hard to say definitively. You just got to rely on precedent. They always push for refugees since they benefit when the system is divided on racial lines. In this case, arguably not necessarily the same, because Cubans always end up on, well, I suppose one side of politics because of the communism, but in your idea, I suppose Jews would not be affixed to communism itself, just to whatever would create divisions long term. I think in this case it might just be an attempt to attack Trump, although that might be a smaller part of a larger push. For some reason, OBS is having a lot of trouble rendering today. It's not because of the extra output I created either, because that's turned off. Maybe it's because this is open. Don't know. One of I think society is stable behind trust. Yeah. Generally, I would agree. Why is Discord taking up so much resources in streaming the screen share? Let's try turning it off and on again. Okay. English with just Romance words. English with just Germanic words. Yeah. Okay. What else have you got on this 8-bit?
All right, so just to irradiate, sorry, I'm tongue-tied. If there was any conversation that the Cuban people would say that counteracts what is proper for the propaganda in Cuba, let me see if this is the one this gentleman, unfortunately, he got arrested for speaking out about the party event, and the Cuban police busted down the door to arrest him.
Okay.
I mean, basically, go ahead.
Ya vienes a tumbar la puerta, tú sabes que son. ¿Viste? Ya vienes a tumbar la puerta.
Wow. So I assume he was just live streaming criticism of the Hassan Piker event, and the police just raided him at that moment simply because he was speaking against it.
Mm-hmm.
A mí no me des muela, estoy haciendo música, mijo. Para la muela. Que no converses nada conmigo, que no te.
The captions are really useful because I can't read or understand what he's saying.
He was just talking about.
Has he been released again, or was this before he was?
I'm not sure,
arrested?
because as soon as you're arrested, you're put into this camp of like re-education. Like you're supposed to follow the propaganda. If not, you'll be in the encampment, God knows what, of doing stone breaking or whatever you can think of that is inhumane labor, slavery.
Yeah.
In most cases, they're upholding food or water, and we never hear from them again. So we're not sure if we were able to see that, specifically that gentleman again, if he ever returns to social media. But that's the sad state of reality. The moment you say anything against the government, you will be arrested. Your phone will be confiscated. They'll probably put in some sort of false allegation that you were a terrorist or whatnot. But it is what it is. Unless, like, I found this post to be a real eye opener. Again, you see this liberal white woman dancing, being happy, enjoying the company of the locals. But as you can listen to the little boy, he says that Cuba has no power, like has no electricity.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with all this, the narrative from the left would be that it's entirely US sanctions that have caused this. And given the sanctions have been around for so long, it's hard to disprove. Still, we'll have a look. Why is this white woman leading a bunch of brown children to half-heartedly chanting? What are they even saying?
You can see. Well, no, I mean they're pretty much like singing. Yeah, I couldn't hear with all the other noises, but the little boy in the shorts, sort of like center right, he like literally like spoke out the truth, and Cuba has no lights. Only I or anyone else, any Cuban can tell that the boy was trying to tell the truth without getting in trouble.
Interesting. The fucking Valley Girl white woman in the background with the pink hat that says LA on it is so stereotypical. It's so fitting to the culture here, surrounded by a bunch of brown children that she's tricked into chanting for her, who are themselves subverting her intentions without her realizing it.
I'm surprised no one has found her social media, because I would love to meet her in person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to speak the mantra, do not cry, but it's so hard looking at this.
Chat will have to help 8-Bit not to do as much crime as she wants to do. Or maybe we should let her. I don't know.
I don't know, to start a GoFundMe page of 8-Bit bonds. Who knows how much, but I'll send you a link if something bad happens to that white woman. I mean, do not crime. Do not crime. 8-Bit, do not crime.
So are they now saying these secret messages in
Yes.
Okay. And the white woman hasn't realized it yet.
Well, the white woman doesn't have a brain, to say the least.
She probably assumes they're saying, we hate Donald Trump, but I don't think that's what they're saying. Actually, I've realized why my OBS is really slow today. I changed the rendering settings so that it would work better with editing software, and that apparently slowed it down. So I might need to pause the stream for a moment and then turn it back on again. Am I able to stop the recording and then change the settings? Let's find out. Give me a second here. No, I can't. It's annoying. Okay, let's try with just this then. See if that is better. Okay, see if that's better. Yes, indeed. Sick puppy, unfortunately.
Yep, accurate.
Cuba has become Jurassic Park for commie tourists.
Yep. As soon as they arrived, that's the transportation they were used.
Mm.
While
I
the rest
guess,
of the citizens are making do of what vehicles they have. Like one thing the left always praise Cuba for is their ingenuity. Like they get these cars from the 1950s and they make it work. They make it run. But that's because that's the US, like companies such as Ford, Chevrolet, they can't go to Cuba to do business. That was the whole point of the blockade. So whatever citizens get a hold of some sort of motor vehicle, whether it's a car, moped, and I don't think of moped because like if a Cuban has a car, they have to share drive for everybody. And if there's a bus, everybody has to use the bus.
I see. All right. What else do we have? What else has been happening in Cuba?
More.
Okay.
This was during the time of the party, but this has been going on for a while.
Okay. Right, here's a video clip. Mariano Havana, March 21st at night. Neighbors were out protesting the blackouts, part of the nightly pot banging that has been going on for over 2 weeks as people demand electricity, dignity, and freedom from the tyranny. In the middle of that, a young man was beaten and taken away by plainclothes agents and police on motorcycles. No patrol car, no procedure, no explanation. The street was dark, people watching, some recording, others quiet because they know how this ends. In the video, a child's voice asks what they're going to do to him if they're going to arrest him, a question that comes from living with this kind of fear. This is what the reality, while laptop socialists and foreign sympathizers fly into Cuba talking about solidarity, staying in lit hotels, and being shown a curated island, turning repression into something they excuse. In practice, they are whitewashing a tyranny that has kept Cubans in misery and darkness for decades, a system people are now confronting every night in the streets. There is no accountability for this, none, just the same cycle of abuse while the country demands freedom in the dark. That sounds about right. Reminds me of the tours they would go in North Korea as well. Different socialists, I assume. I don't know if Hassan Piker would have the balls to go to North Korea. But they show them very curated pictures of the country, a very curated view of the country. There's I think North Korea viewed from space, there's one area with lights. That's the only place they'd go. I'm guessing that this was not the same rapper that we saw earlier, but I imagine that the situation was very similar. And what was he doing? Protesting. Yeah. And I assume he was reported by some other neighbor. His hotel. Sam Piker and Code Pink go to Cuba. See what this is.
What we're seeing right now from Hassan Piker and Code Pink on their trip to Cuba is just the ultimate case of virtue signaling. They're going down there to pretend to help. In reality, they're just like having a party for themselves. So Hassan Piker went on his stream and said he's required to stay in a 5-star hotel because of the American government and American restrictions, which he got quickly community noted. The U.S. government does have sanctions on Cuban government-owned facilities. There are no limits on the quality. It is easy to find lower-rated lodgings not on the prohibited list. So while the rest of Cuba has no power, he's making sure he's in a 5-star luxury hotel. And then you have Code Pink, who literally threw a concert.
I don't need to convince any of you that what kind of character in the space of politics Hassan is. He's there to appeal on a very shallow level to very young and stupid people who have this set of very idealistic and ultimately very dangerous beliefs to basically trick them into continuing to support things that are bad for the nation. He is what you put in a nation you wish to sabotage. And he's a media figure. So he still wants better for himself and he's willing to take for other people. This is essentially just the politics of a psychopath on a particular path, not the obvious upfront fascistic image of a psychopath, which I think often they aren't necessarily, or if they are, it's more about autism. But the psychopath will work subversively. Hassan is too dumb to have set that up, but he's just smart enough to benefit from it.
Oh, you should have watched his stream where he was live streaming in Cuba, and all of a sudden his internet dropped, and you can see him like just going into invisible. I wonder if chat can actually find that video. I've been looking for it because it was a real bad optic on him. So either he shadowed the stream or he just took it down and deleted it altogether.
Interesting. So he's a different man when he's not on camera. What a surprise. Why did you call him a fascist? I didn't. Fascists would hang people like Hassan. I didn't call him a fascist. I said he's not that kind of psychopath. And I even then said I don't think most fascist leaders are. Or if they are, it's not the main motivation for what they do. I think you're confused there. Oh, you're drunk. Okay, fair enough. And before he electrocutes his pet Cuban, causes the next outage. Yeah, that makes sense. Hassan apparently is getting cancelled for helping Cuba. I wonder if it was just for helping them that you're getting cancelled, if you are. Leftists don't get cancelled, besides which. It hasn't really happened, not in the same way. Seen clips of his stream being covered by Kershaw, helping. Yeah, what exactly? Like, you can say that he did something to help. He brought supplies there. What that's doing is helping the government to stay afloat. The best thing to help the people of Cuba is to topple that government, which all the people who have managed to escape it want him to do, or want someone to do. Hassan is keeping it alive longer despite the sanctions. Go on, Bit.
Let's just also make this clear. When they say of helping Cuba, specifically saying Cuban government, nobody's helping the Cuban people. Hassan Piker, Medea Benjamin did not help the Cuban people. They only helped themselves and to promote the Cuban propaganda.
Yeah. You can't even cancel Mussolini, indeed.
Yeah, as I posted the video, this recaps everything of what happened when Code Pink and Hassan Piker went to Cuba, pretty much. This also correlates to the video, like supposedly Hassan Piker and other influencers were tossing biscuits to children to make them dance.
Yeah, that sounds like the kind of thing they would do. Like, it's one thing if you're giving food to the children and they are naturally dancing. It's quite another thing if you're asking them to for the photo op. I don't know if they were, but I could believe it. Footage of French women throwing grains and coins to children in Vietnam in the 1900s. Or in 1900.
Oh, I think I found one that's fixed. Hold on 1 second. Someone posted this. And even though it's not as great as if you can just AI suppose it of having Hassan Piker's face, but it'll do for now.
What a strange disparity this displays. There's a fixed one with Hassan Piker's face on it, I see. No, that isn't Q, that's Benito Mussolini. Wow, John Delancey and Benito Mussolini, they're so similar. Yeah, there you go. That's a very high effort edit there to put Hassan Piker's face on her. Yep. All right. What else do you have for me?
All right. So then, I don't know if this is someone from Cuba, because this type of information will get him in trouble. But supposedly, these are like Mexico has brought food and supplies to the Cuban people, but as I said again, the government will confiscate these items and resell it 3 times the item's worth to the Cuban people, and they cannot afford it. So, and if they were actually would donate, this is all you're going to get: 2 cans of tuna and some crackers. And who knows if the 2 cans of tuna are within expiration date. And do you trust anything from the president of Mexico that has the surname of Scheinbaum?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we don't need to do an early life check for her. Is there no audio on this?
Yeah. I mean, granted,
Not coming out with audio on my end. That's weird. Was there meant to be audio on this video?
yeah, if the audio is bad, it's pretty much he was explained like what's going on. That supposedly Mexico brought food and supposedly it goes directly to the people, but it does not. I mean, he just highlights saying like supposedly they brought rice, water, cans of sardines, Jello, and all that. It was supposed to be directly to the Cuban government, but the Cuban people again, the Cuban people don't get anything.
I think my Firefox audio is broken. Let me try restarting it. Back in a sec, chat. Audio's in Spanish. Yeah, it wouldn't be that much use to me anyway, but still. I am getting very odd frame rate issues with this stream. I changed the encoding settings, but I didn't think I changed them enough to cause this. I'll have to look into that. It's distracted me a bit from the topic, to be honest. Trying to fix it. Okay, hopefully restarting Firefox will fix that. Okay. Seems like whatever I changed is putting way more strain on the GPU, because that seems to be what's slow. But I thought I reset the changes I made. It's still happening. Okay, let's see if that helps. Okay, does this have audio in it? Yes. Right. Right. It doesn't really help me for this video, but it may do for future ones. Okay. So Scheinbaum was Mexico sending food there?
Yes.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Was this Mexican government or Mexican people?
Supposedly the government. I mean, I do know that the Mexican people would donate supplies to Cuba, but if something like this, that's gonna go through the government. I'm not particularly well knowledge of the Mexican government, but I would assume that there would have been some sort of aids or donations. But again, you got to question yourself: who's in power? And if those necessary items that the Cuban people received. And so far, checking social media and going through certain well-known anti-Cuban government influencers, they have not heard anything that the Cuban people received anything of those particular supplies.
Yes, actually, it's just like aid to Africa. Everything donated would get taken. With Africa, it's even worse because once it arrives with the Africans, all it does is create more Africans who starve more. But at least in the short term, that's the goal, is to get it to the people that need it. But yes, very often it would be taken by either the governments or warlords or someone else. Okay, so do you have anything else for me?
All right. So right now I have this when Hassan Piker went on stream. With this, of course, his Cartier glasses and his designer wear while he was staying in Cuba.
Showed off the wads of cash he peppered Cubans with. Shouts out to the Hassan Abbey head at TSA. What's the Aren't you playing? Okay, there we go. All right, that's finally working. Okay, let's have a look.
Also, shouts out to the Hasanabi head at TSA that let me pass through without giving me too much grief, as I had wads and wads of cash on me. That was really funny.
Mate, you're not just some random tourist. I think the government knows you're there, and I assume that they rolled out the red carpet for you, even if you didn't see that. They let you through anyway. I mean, to be honest, if there's someone, he's saying TSA, but I assume it's the regional equivalent. If there's someone there and they see a bunch of cash and they're in a corrupt country, you're probably lucky they didn't take any from you. But they might have done so if not for the fact they probably knew who you were.
Because I walked through TSA and I got a fat stack on me. And it looks a lot more than it actually is because it's like small bills. That's what they told us. They were like, oh, like it's very, you should bring small bills and, just give people money, right? So,
which is very, I guess, like it just seems dirty. It seems diminutive to the people that you're going there for. Like they don't need charity. They don't need something to eat or drink like that. They do need that in the immediate, but it's really bad for them long term to just give them resources. They need a better system.
I came in with this shit, okay? And it looks a lot more than it actually is, okay? So basically what ended up happening is, what? Yeah, I walked in with boyfriend. A brick. It's not actually a brick. It's not actually a brick. Don't worry.
I mean, that stack of ones is probably several months' salary, probably more, for a given Cuban. Yes, he would have gone through TSA on the way out of the country, but I assume he's not talking about them. I don't know, maybe trying to take a stack of notes out of the country would be a problem, but I doubt they would care.
But you are so lucky you got a fucking fan. I know, because he was looking at me like, he's like, bro, you're Hassan. I'm like, yeah. He's like, what the?
Right, so we did know who you were. I think maybe when he said you're so lucky you got a fan, maybe he meant you're so lucky that you have the electricity to run a fan to keep you cool in Cuba, because no one else in Cuba has that. I suspect that is not what the chatter meant, because they are a chatter on Hassan's stream.
What the hell is that in your hand? Is that just a brick? What the fuck? And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to Cuba and like they're all small dollars. Like, don't worry, it's nothing crazy. Bro, you're gonna get robbed? Brother, the money is for the people here. Okay. So like,
is he about to say that if he gets robbed, at least it's going to the people here? No, if you get robbed, it's going to one thief. This is kind of the problem, Hassan, is you see a bunch of people that are in a bad situation and you think, let's just give them things. It's the instant reaction of a very low IQ and especially midwits who are of a wealthy class in Western countries.
I would like to add a real hot take here. Hopefully this is never true, but if he is like giving money out to the Cuban people, let me just put you in the whole black pill. Cuba is in such a worse state. There are literally minors prostituting themselves. So I would not be surprised that Hassan Piker gets charged for soliciting and conducting sexual activities to a minor in a different country. There's already rumors that Hassan Piker was diddling kids in the Eastern world. So I would not be surprised that this motherfucker has been taking advantage of the Cuban people by donating dollar bills for their services.
I have no idea if there's any truth to that. I'm not accusing him, but we'll see. It may be that he just throws money to someone who happens to be a minor prostitute, but then the government wouldn't arrest him because I think the government likes what he's doing.
Oh no, the government also participate of taking advantage of young girls or maybe young boys prostituting themselves. But again, this is how dire, this is how bad Cuba is at the moment. Like, it's been that way for 67 years.
Indeed. Apparently his glasses are real gold.
Yeah, they're from Cartier.
Yeah. As Wormhole says, that could have fed family for quite a while in Cuba.
If someone were to rob me of this money, that would be like I was going to give it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. This attitude of people who are in need, just give them things. It's not always that simple. Sometimes you do more harm in the long term by doing that, even if in the short term it makes you feel good, which is ultimately what it's about. When you see someone doing this, it's not because they think it will be helpful. It's often why the conservative approach seems cruel, because in the short term, it doesn't just meet a need, but in the long term, it reduces the deficit of that need in total. So in total, you do way more good, sometimes with the conservative approach, even if in the short term, the more moralistic or feel-good approach is better. But so why don't we just do the former one? Because idiots like him, who are compassion-minded, they're not doing it for the people they're doing it for. They're doing it for themselves. The benefit to other people is a mechanism for them to be able to do it more often. They are feeding an addiction to feeling like a savior. It is all for themselves. And very often, that is the case. Ultimately, everything we do can be rooted back to benefits to ourselves, but the degree to which that is and the rate at which it is a matter of addiction versus a matter of pride and accomplishment is different. With most leftists, it will be an addiction, not just to the feeling of having been a savior, but also to the fame and renown that they get from it. With most other altruism, it is not that shallow, although ultimately there is a beneficial feeling from doing it. Nacho says, Hassan Piker is the kind of subversive actor Yuri warned us about and a complete piece of shit. 8-bit, I hope any family you have in Cuba are safe, as do I.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, all of my family and extended family have escaped Cuba years ago. So I just hope that if there are any extended family of mine, I hope they are safe. I hope that they survive. Hopefully that soon Cuba will be liberated. And all the crimes and the atrocities that the government have opposed on the citizens, God, I wish justice will be served.
Indeed. Do you have anything else that we can go over?
I think I found this video where Hassan Piker was live streaming and then his data dropped. I know it's like a stream within a stream.
Hassan addresses the tiny espresso cup, said it was served at a friend's house and not room service. Quote, I don't even understand. I'm literally not even in the hotel here. Not only that, but Ryan Grimm made me a coffee. Are they saying it's because I'm drinking coffee like a gay guy? I don't think so.
But we got to replay that last part.
Experiencing that dichotomy is like definitely me up. Definitely.
You couldn't have done that better if you scripted it. I bet he has a Grey Poupon suppository.
Like, I don't understand. I'm literally not even in the hotel here, for the record.
Liar. Liar.
You reckon?
He's lying. He was staying at a hotel, a 5-star hotel.
But at that
Specifically,
time.
the hotel. Well, this is what I got information. He was staying at the hotel that is directed to the government to stay at. You're not allowed to go to, for a guy like Hassan, he is allowed to only stay in areas that are nicer, not to be exposed to the atrocities what communists have done.
Yeah. But if he maybe was not in the hotel at that moment in that footage, what difference would it make? Because I'm not even sure what the commentary is here. Like, he's talking about how tough it's been for him, and then he drinks from what looks like an extremely aristocratic cup. And the implication is it's room service in the hotel, but I think it's more so just the image of how stuck up he looks compared to the assumed people around him, or the knowledge of what's happening in the country. It's really the wrong image. I mean, I suppose the idea is that if someone is doing charitable work like this, they should not ignore the people that actually really need the help, and that this is all for him just a photo op, as we said earlier. But I think that's the idea that's being promoted here. But he's not even hiding the fact that he looks like a weak-wristed aristocrat.
I'm at a friend's house, okay? This was a local's home that I'm in, okay? And not only that, but Ryan Grimm made me a fucking coffee. Are they saying it's because I'm drinking coffee like a gay guy? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yes.
I mean, that's also true. But why are you drinking it from such a tiny cup? This is something I'm not familiar with. This is a common coffee thing.
No, it's part of the whole Latin American culture. There's like how we make coffee is cocaine to American, pretty much. So this here's a little thing. What we serve is an espresso. Yes, espresso. But normally here in the Cuba, we call it a cortadito. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing. My tongue is tied. It's a little small shot of just strong. We normally get the grind espresso beans, and we pack it into the espresso machine, and it comes out high concentrate. I would like to challenge between espressos between Italians and Cubans and see who makes the strongest. And you can have it served either with no sugar or have sugar foam on the top, which makes it real nice. Uzu, if you happen to visit Miami, Florida, I'll treat you to an espresso. Maybe just a tiny slim amount, considering that you have, since you are a penchant of Monster Energy drink, I do not want to expose you to a high amount of caffeine.
Well, that sounds interesting. Thank you for the offer. I'll take it if I'm ever there. It's like 10 times a Monster Energy, says Pug. Fair enough.
Yes. So
yeah,
the coffee being served in a small cup, the reason why is because it has a high concentrate of caffeine, the way how it's served.
Okay.
But still, he drinks it like a faggot.
Yeah, he does.
It's a tiny cup, man. I'm a massive guy. It's a Cuban coffee. What the fuck's the problem? This reminds me of enjoy your fancy burger, Mr. President. Yeah.
Hurry up his butthole. By the way, his glasses cost $1,400.
Yeah, broke boy. What's up? Yeah, I got swag, bitch. What are you gonna do about it? Suck my
times.
That's not quite the right message there, Hassan, given that you're trying to do something charitable. That was the idea, wasn't it?
The average Cuban salary and 4 times what I pay my right.
Dumbass, anything that you wear is gonna be like 3 times the average Cuban salary. It's a very poor island. We've kept it poor. That's the point.
Up. He said it. He said the quiet part out loud.
When he says we, he means the American government. That's the implication he's trying to give there. But Hassan, maybe he just doesn't get the basic concept that if you go somewhere poor and you flash wealthy shit, it's just not a good look. I think he just doesn't get that, or he doesn't think he needs to care. He probably thinks Go on.
I'll tell you this: if he peacocks around Miami, Florida, like the hardest neighborhood, he will get mugged. The reason he was lucky that he did not get mugged in Cuba because he is a very notable public figure on the internet, and the Cuban government will protect him. None of the Cuban people would ever try to come up to him and harm him or steal his stuff. Hell, even if Hassan Piker give a Cuban citizen $1, that Cuban citizen with that dollar will go to hand it to the authorities. They cannot keep it.
Makes sense. Nachos, when you said randomed, I thought you meant randomed, like that was a new expression, and I was wondering why a 50-year-old woman was using such a like young person new expression. But then I realized you meant ransomed. Yes. I wonder if anyone would bother to pay the ransom to get Hassan back. Send him to Haiti for charity. Yeah, I'm sure that'd be great.
Oh, I would love to see him in Haiti, but then again, nothing bad will happen to him.
Yeah, he'd always be insulated by government and other activists. His parents would, I suppose so, yeah. Okay, so let's see, where were we? Is there anything else, Apid? Any other sources you have?
Okay, so I'm trying to go through all my saved posts. So then I guess we'll talk about like how the people, like the convoy, how they left Cuba, because I know for a fact that the only reason that they didn't get arrested or they got put aside by TSA is that they hid themselves as like a charity, as like a way of I'm blanking out. Like this whole convoy was just to supposedly supposed to be like for a donation or like some sort of a organization of helping the Cuban citizen. When, and frankly, it was just to promote their ideology. And then, as you saw in the party, it was about free Palestine. The whole ideologue, like it's always been about propaganda. It was never about helping the Cuban people. If it was not for if it was anything other than the donate, like to do some sort of charity event, then the U.S. government will look into it and start arresting people because you're not supposed to make businesses to the Cuban government. So, what Wormhole posted, I'm gonna get to that. Let me show you. So, I don't know how Hassan Piker returned to the U.S. without getting pulled by U.S. Customs. But I know I saw this post that certain people in that convoy were pulled and questioned.
Okay. "14 of us have been detained in Miami International Airport upon returning from Cuba," it says. Okay, well, I wonder why.
Yeah, and so when that post included the names of those who were detained, I looked up their social, like I looked up their Twitter. The one that Wormhole posted was someone by the name of Christian Smalls. Let me just send the link to that. I managed to find 3 of the 4. The 4th one seems to that the person deleted their Twitter account.
Okay.
So this is the first one.
"Founder of the Amazon Labor, the first independent worker-led union in American history for Amazon." Maybe Amazon did need to have a workers' union, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, the narrative from all of them is the US is strangling Cuba, but I think it's just, you can't really demonstrate either way whether it's because of the sanctions or whether it's because of the socialism, except that socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried. And if they would often say that it's because it's been sanctioned everywhere it's been tried, but then that's how it happens. If you've got 2 competing ideas, they will try to stop each other. Socialism was trying desperately to stop capitalism through subversion, still is. So it's not like it's just one side doing it. But capitalism works regardless, and socialism always collapses. Amazon's a pretty shit company to work for, from what I've heard. Drivers pissing in bottles and actual wage cages. Yes, from what I've heard, that's true. And European countries allowed to trade with Cuba. I'm not sure. I don't think the US has stopped other countries from trading with them. They just stopped their own businesses from doing so. But because the Cuba is so close to the US, it's probably quite difficult to continue. But I'm not sure about that. whether European countries are allowed to.
Yeah, just scroll through the replies in media. You can see posts from this person did posting from Cuba. Most obvious posing on the mural of Che Guevara.
I will in a sec. It turns out, yes, European countries are able to. So it's not a blockade. If it was a blockade, then no one else would be able to trade with Cuba. It's just an embargo for themselves, for the US. Okay, so what was I looking through a bit?
If you look through the Christian Small's Twitter account, you can check the replies and then check with the media. You post a lot of stuff.
The island, not a single
But
drop of
he
oil
was.
has
Go on.
Oh, go ahead. Play the video.
entered since December 3rd. Thousands of life-saving surgeries are halting. Food is wasting and 10 million people are facing rolling blackout. The United States has escalated a 60-year-long embargo to the island as retaliation for defying global imperialism. Marco Rubio, bitch ass, is leading.
Okay, they showed a US vessel there, but I don't think the US is blockading Cuba. So is this just library footage to show you what a US ship looks like and to imply that they're blockading even if they're not? And he did say embargo, blockading Cuba. Renewed embargo, state sponsor of terrorism to 2021, political sanctions, but not a blockade. Are they blocking oil? Again, increasing pressure on Mexico to resources. Yeah, so they're pressuring other countries to reduce the oil sales. And tariffs against countries that are doing it. So not a physical blockade, it's not preventing them, but it is trying to pressure other countries to do it. Still, posting the picture of the battleship here is, or the carrier rather, is inaccurate and misleading.
Embargo to the island as retaliation for defying global imperialism. Marco Rubio, bitch ass, is leading the attack against the island, but the people have an inextinguishable spirit and have made it clear that they won't surrender and turn back into a giant casino for the mafia like it was before the revolution.
Now, from what I've heard, it was pretty bad before the revolution, and the US sponsored the leader at the time. Was that Batista?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be either of those things. It doesn't have to, because the US is very different now than it was 70 years ago. Not necessarily better in every way, but it wouldn't necessarily end up being the same. But even then, there's probably quite a lot of Cubans who would even prefer how it was under Batista than how it's been recently. Still,
Well, all I have to say with the history of Cuba, one thing for sure, what would like the possibility, or like what would Cuba look like if the US actually took over the country, like with Puerto Rico? It doesn't have to be part of the US, it has to be like it could be part of the domain of the US. But
yeah.
That I would just say that would be a fairy tale dream. But then it would be nice that hopefully soon, if not today, hopefully before the end of President Trump's presidential is up, that Cuba will be free.
Indeed. Zeman saying it's pretty good before Batista. Yeah. Meddling of larger countries in smaller countries' affairs, even if the larger country has, relatively good intentions, they're not trying to sabotage it, does seem to cause problems very often. But it's unavoidable given where Cuba is, and given its historical ties with the Soviet Union. I dare say that the Batista being so bad may have been because of Soviet interest, that the US had to take an interest in it. Then again, it's not like the US wasn't getting anything out of it, didn't have some sort of personal motive. Cuba does have resources to sell after all.
The U.S. is even trying to pressure countries in the region to kick out Cuban doctors, which is one of their main exports, depriving millions of poor people of health care. It's just a genocidal campaign through and through.
Genocidal's a bit strong, but the Cuban doctors saying, I'm not sure if that's true, about trying to kick them out. But importing doctors does not necessarily, it's not the only way to get doctors, and sometimes importing them reduces the production of doctors in your own country. What's more, as Avit was saying earlier, the supply of medical aid to the people of Cuba is not exactly where it should be. It's really only an attraction to make Cuba look better by having those quality doctors, but they don't actually do medical work for the country. And that is a very socialist tactic, something that which replacing the government would fix.
And so we're calling on the United States government to lift the blockade and let Cuba live. Cuba is being strangled by a total block.
Yeah, blockade is the wrong word for it. It's not technically true. But then would you expect them to be correct? All right. Do you have anything else, Abit?
Yep, I got more. The next person that was pinged from that Twitter post, this one is a journalist, or I like to say Euronist, because who can trust the journalists nowadays? If you're part of the Alphabet News Group. But this one, I never seen this person before, but this person was detained in Miami International Airport.
One sec. From what I understand, Batista was only as bad as he was because he had to crack down hard on the communists. I can see it. Okay. It's just sports journalist as well. Israel did too. Okay, so Israel. That's one thing. Yeah.
If you go to his media, that's where like the first 5 videos he posted can give you an inside look. If you click on the one that's for 11 seconds, it shows you that these individuals were in the Cuban government, like literally in the in the office building, shaking hands with the government.
Yeah. Well, so they're benefiting the Cuban government, even if they're only barely benefiting the Cuban people and only really in the short term. So it makes sense. Is there meant to be audio on this? Is it broken again? No, there wasn't, luckily. Okay. So yeah. Meeting with the government by the looks of it. You can't blockade the sun, says this t-shirt. Well, have you brought solar panels for them? There you go. Well, they're not blockading Cuba, right? What is this from Shapiro?
Last tweet of the week remains that story of the man with no arms and no legs, who somehow was a cornhole champion, but also achieved the signal feat of driving a car and also shooting a man while driving a car. And I did tell that story to my kids, and I said, kids, don't you ever tell me that you can't accomplish anything in this life.
Thank you, Shapiro. I thought that was going to be Israel related, given that this guy's first post was about Israel.
All right, so now back to blackpilling. You can also click on the ones for the 42nd second. This shows supposedly the supplies for the Cuban people.
We are in the international airport here in Cuba. This is just a portion of the aid.
Look at this African trying to speak in a Hispanic accent.
That Code Pink has collected with all of your donations and all of, the love and the support. This is what it's done. And like I said, that's only a portion. We were on the 6:30 in the morning crew, the early crew flight. And then we have another convoy of folks that are coming on the 11:30 flight straight from Miami.
Look, if your activism was actually counter to what the establishment wanted, you wouldn't have been able to do all this. You've got this massive set of boxes in what I assume is an airport there, or some area anyway, that the government, if they wanted to, could easily crack down. People like this kind of activist, this is the kind that can just do whatever they want. Because it's being supported by what the establishment broadly, and more broadly than what Trump is, want. Because the president does not have all the power.
To Havana. So
150 people more.
Yeah, 150 in total, probably even more. There were so many people who wanted to be a part of this. So this is a group effort. This is you effort. This is a us effort. This is a communal effort to come and be supportive and help the people of Cuba.
Love it.
Yeah. Havana, we are in the
Yeah. Export pain to Cuba as Achilles. I think maybe just to the Cuban government. Ilhan Omar's daughter joined them on the trip. Oh, I see. Yet another great argument against unfettered immigration, especially when it's based on marriage to one's brother. All right. What else do we have?
Just also check out the next video.
Okay. This one? Top right?
Yeah.
Everybody from around the world, it seems like, decided to send a different size box
Right.
full of medical equipment that Cuba could easily afford, easily have in its country.
So you didn't check the boxes before they were sent to you?
And if
What
there
I-
were medical supplies, shouldn't
Yeah.
they be stacked properly and just instead of just like the way how they are
Yeah.
positioned?
My interpretation was that they were sent money and used it to buy proper medical supplies. But they have just been sent boxes of... And they're sealed until they get there, I assume. I don't know if they've checked them. They did say they were sent boxes, not boxes from around the world, all different sizes. So they didn't even take them out the box. They didn't even check what was in there. It could be anything. It could be anthrax you're handing out to these people. And either
Or
way...
they're just empty boxes.
Or they're just empty boxes with fucking bricks in them or something. Are you giving these to the people, or are you giving them to the government? Because if you're giving them to the people, that's the wrong way to distribute medical supplies, so I assume you're not doing that. If you're giving them to the government, well done. You have fallen for it. The government are not your friends, or really the friends of the Cuban people. They are going to distribute it as according to their preferences. Now, these guys believe that literally 100% of the problems with Cuba are caused by US government sanctions. And all the Cubans who've escaped Cuba and got to the US are just blinded by this, by not being able to see that that's the case. And that they know better. Almost always this middle to upper class white leftist virtue signaling charity comes with the assumption at some point, somewhere in the process, that they know way better than the people who are directly involved in the thing. And certainly in this case, it is the case. But they think it's 100% US sanctions, and that the government, they're just trying to do their thing. You know, they have a socialist system here that works brilliantly, and it would be fine if not for the US government. And it's a worldview that doesn't really seem to comport with the facts, how socialism usually goes, and how all the escaped Cubans actually believe. I mean, what percentage of the Cubans that make it to the US are like right wing? Probably 80+%. There's a reason for that. Same reason that, I think this is still true, the area of Germany that votes AfD, the right-wing populist party, is the exact area, and I think it's a bit bigger now, the exact area that was East Germany. The communist one. Lessons of the past. Cubans that made it to the US aren't the ones who are trying communism, though, indeed. So these guys wouldn't like him as much.
Except for a single country, besides the genocidal state of Israel, vote every year to deny Cuba the ability to feed itself. It's in Israel vote every year. It's brought before the UN to stop this embargo. All civilized countries says no. And the United States, year after year after year. And now Trump says, it's mine. I own it. Woo!
Biden didn't remove the sanctions. Are you aware of that? If Cubans are of the same breed as the rest of Hispanics, it's reasonable to assume that most of them are in fact socialists and retards. There is unfortunately a bit of a correlation in South America with socialism, but I'm not sure it is necessarily because they're Hispanic. I think it's mostly given the history of socialist subversion of the region, which is just carrying on. I'm not sure though. Simple says even if the Browns are right wing, they will still fuck over non-Browns for their in-group preference. Base black guy is a shit meme to adopt to our. That is often true, but not always. And I think with Cubans, you've got your best chance of that not being a problem. But over a very long period of time, there may be some truth to that.
I can't believe Americans stand for that. I think many Americans are proud of that statement. It's appalling.
I'm not sure you understand really what they're saying. As I said, this is a difficult one because there's no sort of concrete thing you can point to and say it's definitely because of the government or it's definitely because of the sanctions. Both sides are going to have their own interpretation, but it's not honest to come at it as if one perspective is just non-existent and the only way to look at it is, well, the US is just evil and that's the entire problem and it's starving the people deliberately for some reason. Why though? Because they're socialists and they want the socialist project to fail? they don't really care, the US government. They mostly just want the resources. Mostly just want the trade. That's what countries are motivated by, not by ideology. Some movements are. The Cuban government, for example, is actually motivated by ideology. Socialism does tend to do that. Bill Clinton selflessly volunteers to help short-staffed TSA with pat-downs. The least he can do. That's very good of him, yeah. Turn Cuba into a giant base. Well, the Cuban people might benefit more from that. It's the same thing with... there are similarities between when people sort of react to... If Israel benefits from something, it must be bad. Right, and that's often the case. It's definitely a point for caution. But just because Israel benefits from something doesn't necessarily mean that the thing itself is bad. Right. Similarly to that, just because one country is mostly serving another country doesn't mean that the people are going to be destitute. In fact, the opposite may be the case. Now, I'm not saying that Cuba should just go from one, dictatorial ruler to an external ruler if they were to become a US territory. I'm not saying that should happen. But if it did happen, I think they'd be way better off. The US has, and there's many flaws, obviously, problems as with most Western countries, but at least has an economy which, when run by its own model, it converges towards wealth, whereas a socialist model converges towards destitution. And so if that model and the people within it can find some way to make Cuba and its people profitable, then that profit will inevitably be shared. There will be more wealth going around. There will be a convergence towards profit overall. Now, there's, as I said, issues with that. Some issues which socialism, at least in the short term, appears to solve. But on the large scale, long term, it's way better for everyone involved. Now, I don't think Cuba needs to be a territory of another country, but it would be better than this, than where they currently are, I expect.
All right, you can click on the next picture, the 25-second one. I'm sure this is probably the highlight of the party.
So they're saying, yes, Cuba, no blockade. Again, there isn't a blockade. But for activistic purposes, they are exaggerating that. And it's kind of fair enough. Activists do that all the time, but technically it's not true. It's actually not that big an audience, is it? I wonder how many of them are actually Cubans. It looks like a lot of white people.
Nope, you'll never find one single Cuban in that party.
Mm.
These are just sheeps chanting the lines that they are told to say.
Very well could be paid protesters. I see a lot of different kinds of people in that audience, but very few of them look Cuban. They all look white or African, or even the ones that do could easily be Americans who are not originally from Cuba.
Also, just keep in mind, if the Cuban government finds any of the guests that were part of the convoy, if they are related to the Cuban people, like if, let's say, an escaped citizen, they would get arrested.
Mm.
If the government finds out that one of the citizens that flee from Cuba and became a U.S. citizen, they will arrest them, and it has happened.
Yeah,
so
I can believe that.
From that group, I hardly doubt there is one single either a former Cuban citizen or a family member of a Cuban citizen.
Yeah. Okay. Got this video as well. Seems more like a drinking vacation, they say. Yeah, this just looks like a it just looks like a holiday for yobbos. Sorry, that's two very English terms there. I hope you get what I'm saying. There's the Irish flag there as well. Yeah, right to shame die for this. What was she thinking? Yeah. These people probably didn't need to be paid to be flown in, but they may well be paid protesters. Just literally, well, what a deal. We get paid to go here and party. But I doubt they need to be paid for it, but they're clearly not Cubans, or very few of them are. And it looks like quite a small and walled off venue. I wonder if they were deliberately keeping out the locals. Wouldn't be surprised.
You can say from a quote from Animal Farms, all animals are equal, except some animals are better than others.
More equal than others, yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think happy to go through more stuff a bit, but I think we probably get the picture, to be honest. This is what I would have assumed it was anyway. But is there anything else you have on this?
Okay, so to cap it all off, I saw this post, and this was very interesting. Hopefully, this event will happen. Where, come on, Twitter.
Pug, if you have something, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Some of their justifications. If you have something, do link it. Raul Castro evacuate. I'm pretty sure that Raul Castro is brother of the previous leader, but he has given over power to Chavez?
No, Canal Diaz.
Okay. Yes, sorry. He's given over power to another leader, but he's still alive. Sources in Havana report that former Cuban dictator Raul Castro was rushed out of his private residence on Cayo Saitia after a serious security breach. He was extracted under a major military deployment and transferred to Havana. You can run, but you can't hide, she says. Well, if it was a US operation, he would probably just have been taken. But if it was a US operation, why take the brother of the dictator? It wouldn't be the right target, I don't think. Maybe I'm supposed to think that. Maybe he is still running. You would know better than me, AB, I'm sure. Maybe he is still actually the one running the show. He just doesn't have the official position because that would make him too big a target.
Yeah, you're correct. It could be that he was giving information to Canal, like how to run Cuba. So the Presidente Canal Diaz is just a puppet.
Yeah. That I wouldn't be that surprised, because it's weird for a dictator to give up power when he's still alive and still liked. Well, liked, able to maintain power. So him doing it as a sidestep to make someone else the target does seem fairly likely. Yeah. A lot of enemies inside Cuba, it says. So it probably is someone from inside Cuba, rather than the US themselves. Okay. Right. Anything further?
Nope. Okay. So far, there hasn't been any updates other than everybody on the internet is just trashing on Hassan Piker of going to Cuba.
Yeah. Okay. This was a link sent by Pug about their justifications.
I'm just back from Cuba late last night and here in Congress already with a group of 10 people walking the halls.
Most activists don't go do their activism and then suddenly get invited to Congress. Like, this is when you know that your activism is just serving the establishment interests, when after your activism you're invited to speak in Congress.
Trying to push our members of Congress to support a war powers resolution that says Trump does not have the right to invade Cuba, and a Cuba Trade Act.
I don't think he's going to invade Cuba. I suppose he could snatch their leader. But ultimately, I think that depends. I think Congress is meant to sign off on wars, but Trump has already done what would be an act of war against Venezuela by nabbing Maduro without asking Congress first. To be fair, if you ask Congress, it will ruin the plan. So that's a tough one. Even if they did block it, I expect Trump would still do it if he wanted to.
It's called HR 7521 to lift the embargo on Cuba. And we hope that more and more people will get involved because Cuba is suffering so much right now.
Did you push for the embargo on Cuba to be lifted under Biden? I'm just curious. Because again, he kept Trump's embargo for his entire term right up until the last week I think literally, just so he could quote unquote keep the promise. On the last week, he dropped them, and then Trump reintroduced them when he came back into power. So Biden clearly was doing a token effort there. Were you activizing against him then?
Trump has bragged about not a drop of oil getting to the island in the last 3.5 months. But what that means is tremendous suffering for 10 million people.
Unfortunately, the suffering would be happening whether the embargo was there or not. Surely you're aware, woman, of the dictatorial police state actions being taken. I was aware of it before today, and certainly 8-Bit showed me more examples of it. Is she aware, or is she just like, no, that's government that's anti-government propaganda? Or, that person being arrested in the middle of the night with no due process? Oh, no, there was due process. That was all above the board. They must have been terrorists or something. She would just assume the best. Or I shouldn't be so generous, and she is actually just a liar. Motherfuckers, has anyone ever seen a good-looking feminist activist ever? Yeah, it's not common, is it? A lot of times that is why they're a feminist.
I want to debunk some of the myths about our delegation. And our delegation was about 170 people, but there were hundreds of people that were coming from all over Europe and Latin America. People said, oh, you stayed in luxury hotels. We stayed in one of the only 4 hotels that the U.S. government allows us to stay in, and they are all...
Bullshit! What we heard earlier, that's not how it works. I think that's the line they were all going with, but as far as I know, that's not how it works. Does the U.S. restrict which hotels in Cuba can be used? It strictly restricts which hotels Americans can use in Cuba. Now, we heard earlier that there were restrictions, but are they quality related? Travelers subject to U.S. jurisdiction prohibited from lodging at, paying for, or booking hundreds of hotels or businesses that are owned or controlled by the Cuban government or Communist Party. So, I mean, that's nothing to do with quality. That's to do with allegiance. If the Cuban, it's a managed economy, it's a command economy. If they run every single hotel, except a tiny number of them, which are specifically there so that foreigners have somewhere to stay when they come over for their photo op, then it's not really the US government blocking it. I mean, it is, but it's because the government runs it. That would be the problem there. There's a conflict between the governments. And you're implying that they force you to stay at that's misleading at the very least. Prohibited accommodations list. If there are any left outside this list, which are not 5-star hotels, so there's a lot listed there. Havana. There's a lot of these listed. Yeah, so these are all the ones that, according to the US, are controlled by, by the Cuban government. It's quite a lot. So I wonder what's left after that. I doubt we're going to get a good list of that. Not all hotels. I very much doubt that the only ones left are the high-grade ones. Pay to stay with the plebs. Sure, you could do that, yeah? Hassan committed a crime by using a state-run hotel in Cuba. Interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they said, oh yeah, we're restricting which hotels we can stay in, and then stayed in one of the ones that is restricted anyway, just because it's a 5-star hotel. Well, that would be double hypocrisy, wouldn't it? So you can get a list of approved hotels. Yeah, I'll try to do that. I doubt that it'll be easy to get, and I don't want a biased source. Let's see if Grok can do better with this. Are you able to generate a list of hotels in Cuba which US tourists are allowed to stay at? I know many are restricted, and I know why, but which aren't restricted. Even if it gives a list, it's going to be hard to parse what they mean. Government or military and properties. That's probably standard issue for any country that you are in conflict with. Somnus, you've sent me a lot of links, which are not on the topic that we're currently talking about, but I do want to look at them all later. So please do save them, and when we move on to the next topic, I'll look into them. Yeah, that looks pretty fucking awful. And if those pictures are true, it does kind of give some credence to the idea that he was there, doesn't it? Jesus.
Sadly, I would say this is AI.
It might well be, yeah. We could have a look in more detail at the details to see if it looks like it's AI or not. But unfortunately, it is plausible. This is taking longer than usual to find this. I guess it's a difficult question, though. This is the thing with Grok, is it is very slow. It does make mistakes sometimes, but I found it makes mistakes way less often than the other AIs. If I ask ChatGPT something, it will give me an answer very quickly, and it'll usually be wrong, or often be wrong. Okay, so it says, US tourists are allowed to stay at hotels and other accommodations in Cuba that are not on the US Department of State Department of Cuba prohibited accommodations list. The prohibited list bans lodging, paying for lodging. Oh, okay, so yeah, they couldn't stay with citizens unless they are known not to be associated with the government, which would have been difficult. Or reserving stays at hundreds of properties, mostly large government-owned or military-linked hotels, resorts, apart hotels, never heard that expression before, and some casas. It covers major chains and brands like many Melia, Iberostar, etc., etc. Other areas. Recent additions include places like all those. What is allowed, the hotels that aren't restricted are almost exclusively small, privately owned boutique hotels and casas particulares, specific houses, private homes licensed to rent homes to foreigners marked with a blue sign. These are run by individual Cuban citizens or families, not the government or military. Staying in them also helps fulfill the support for the Cuban people travel category that most Americans use. Most common, affordable, and straightforward legal option, they range from simple rooms to upscale boutique-style properties with hotel-like amenities. True large-scale hotels that are fully private and legal are rare because most big properties have government ties. Right, so they must have gone to the only ones, only a very small list of casas particulares which they could have stayed at, which were of a really high quality that they chose to go to. Like, the argument with this, right, is not ironclad, saying that because you're going to do charity, assume you're arguing to them, right? How would you present this? Or someone that agrees with them to convince an audience, right? If someone's going to somewhere to do charity, which is ostensibly their reason, should they remain as humble as possible? Should they remain at the same level of humility as roughly as the people that they're going there for? Usually the answer is yes. But that's mostly an optics question, as far as I would guess. Like, is there a better reason than simply optics not to flaunt wealth once you're there? Because if there is also the argument with charities, for example, that if like 80% of the charity's money goes directly to the people they're going to help, well, that seems like, well, where's that 20% going? Is it going straight into lining the pockets of the fat cat in charge? Not necessarily. In fact, it may be that the best balance for giving money to the people that need it, assuming charities work, isn't 100%. Because then you've got no one to administer it, no one to make sure the money is going to where it should go, no professionals who know how to handle money or know how to do marketing to get more money in. So, and you need to pay them to do that job. So if a smaller portion than 100% goes towards the people that need it, maybe that's the optimal amount. Maybe 80% is the optimum amount for effectiveness of a charity. Same thing here. Their argument might be that if our charity workers are exhausted and have been disturbed up all night by some raucous noise or the perditions of living in this place, which they are here to solve, then they can't do their job as effectively. Which is, again, it doesn't ring honest. It sounds shallow. It sounds kind of weak and like your heart's not really in it. But then there are going to be times where you do that and you still have a positive effect. In this case, as I said, I think in the short term, for some people, they may have, given the benefit of the doubt, they may have had a positive effect by giving medical supplies, food, etc. Long term, I think it's damaging, even mid-term. But short term, it probably helps some people. Is that worth the flaunting of the wealth? Could they have done this without the wealthy places to stay? Probably yes. But there are going to be times where that's acceptable. Do we have a better argument than just for optics? for not going to really wealthy people. Because everyone's been talking about it, but I haven't really heard anyone say why it's a problem. And that's the only one I can think of. Pretty sure he tried to pass off visiting local restaurants and bars as charity work. I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, Zeman, that makes sense. Is there even any footage of Hassan doing actual charity or just video of him making children dance like monkeys for hotel complimentary cookies? I don't think we actually saw the video of him making children dance like monkeys. I know that was mentioned. Okay, so there are some of these, and then elsewhere in Cuba there's quite a lot. Okay, so to be frank, I'm looking into this after Hassan visited and seemingly stayed at very wealthy, apparently stayed at wealthy accommodation. Is it known where he stayed? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that lines up, Somnus. Okay, it's looking into it. Grand Hotel Bristol Melia Collection, says Pug. Is that known? That is not listed here. Right, it's not giving a full list here. Okay, so there is a Mail article on it. Let's see what that says about it. That may have details. Humanitarian trip to Cuba. Woke progressive streamer Hassan Piker wears $1,300 Cartier glasses, $690 shirt. How can you spend that much for a shirt? While staying in 5-star hotel during humanitarian trip to Cuba, where average annual salary is $200. Annual salary is $200. That's even less than I guessed. Progressive streamer Hassan Piker has been slammed for wearing designer glasses. Again, like, yes, well done, Pug. You did find it faster than Grok. Can anyone suggest to me what is, because I'm not saying it's not, but what is the problem with wearing really expensive clothes while doing charity work? Is it just optics?
It's optic. It just sends a really bad image. Like if you're trying to help people who are severely low poverty, it doesn't look good. And plus the fact that it could devise, like it would create like some sort of a bad situation where you will get mugged.
The only way to not get mugged is if you're constantly surrounded by security, or if you never encounter the actual people you're helping, supposedly. And I suspect both is true for Hassan, whenever he was outside, if he ever was outside when he went there. Okay, the group's protesting America's oil blockade. Again, it's not a blockade, Daily Mail. As far as I know, maybe if the word blockade can be used to refer to preventing trade without physical blocking, which is what it's supposed to be used for. If it's just diplomatic blockade, trying to get other countries to stop sending things to them, that is still, that's still an embargo. It's just other countries are going along with it, which has left residents struggling without enough food or energy since Trump cut off its oil supply in January, sparking protests and unrest across the country as the economy continues to spread. Even the Mail is presenting it charitably to Hassan's position. Piker and others, including Isra Hersey, the 23-year-old daughter of Ilhan Omar, flocked to Havana over the weekend and reportedly stayed in luxury 5-star hotels while locals make just $150 to $200 annually on average. One of the hotels they are believed to have stayed in is the Grand Hotel Bristol Melia Collection, an elegant getaway that has a rooftop pool and offers rooms for $130 to $520 a night. So literally exclusively for tourists. I assume then that was one that they are allowed to stay in. But I'm curious if Grok has finally figured that out. What kind of answer it can give us on that. So, okay. Publicly known exactly where he stayed. Hassan Piker traveled the Grand Bristol Hotel, as Pug said. 5-star luxury hotel with a rooftop pool. Very much the wealthy accommodation you mentioned. Some also reference other upscale spots like the Iberostar Marks de la Torre. Important context on legality. The specific hotel is explicitly listed on the official U.S. Department of State's Cuba a prohibited accommodations list. Oh, so he did break the law. So we had to stay in one of the few hotels that we were allowed to stay in goes and stays in a hotel you're blocked from staying in that is specifically one of the best hotels on the entire fucking island. Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see the problem now. He could be arrested for that. He should be. That means US persons, including Hassan, are not allowed to lodge there, pay for lodging, or reserve stays. One of the many large government-linked regime-affiliated properties banned precisely to avoid direct financial support to the Cuban government or military. Hassan's publicly defended the stay on a social, saying, US law is stupid and forces Americans into five-star hotels like this, claiming it's one of the only legal options. But you're wrong, it wasn't. It was illegal, and you still... if you were going for an illegal one, you could have stayed anywhere. It didn't have to be 5-star. You were already breaking that policy. But if you're going to stay somewhere that you're allowed to stay, it sounds like less of them are of that level of opulence that you would have stayed in a private house, which some of them seemingly are basically hotels. But from what Grok was saying just now, it seems like they're not this level of quality. But like this would have to be for European tourists, right? Because American tourists it would be illegal for them to stay there. Now, some of them might do it anyway, but mostly I expect it would be for European or other wealthy nations' tourists to go stay at. That's probably where they make most of their money. Locals aren't paying for it, except a very tiny portion of it's hotels. I imagine probably almost none. But if they are, they would be of the probably very small aristocracy in Cuba, because, as has always been the case, and as I've often said, no system produces more disparity between the richest and the poorest than socialism. Hassan has publicly defended the stay. He insisted he didn't break any rules. Claim has been heavily criticized because the prohibited ban list bans these exact kind of luxury hotels. Does it ban this exact hotel though? So what's it? What was it called exactly? It's got Bristol. That'll be fun. Bristol's a country, city in UK, by the way. Bristol. Okay, the only one that's listed is a different one that has Bristol in the name. Right. So, okay, so it's not on the list, but I expect the rule is that this is just a list of examples. This is not the or was listed as of 20. The last time it was listed was 2020. So all they had to do is build the hotel since then, or change its name since then, and suddenly it's not on the list. So this is fucked. They haven't updated the list in a few years, so you can stay on anything that's not on the list. I'm pretty sure the rule is descriptive. It's not just these specific hotels. Owned or controlled by the Cuban government. Yeah. It says it is explicitly listed. Oh, never mind. Oh, never mind. No, it is there. It's just by a different name. Grand Hotel Bristol. Kempinski. Okay. So never mind. Fuck it. It is on there. So it is that one. The one I already found. It's just got a different name with the Bristol Kempinski thing. I don't know what that means. But okay, so it is on there. So it's literally illegal. Now, maybe it was added after his trip to this list. I can't find that out for sure. I suppose I could look on the Wayback Machine to try and be certain of that. But it's certainly descriptively within what the law is about. Updated as recently as July 2025. Okay, I guess they did say it was updated 2020, but maybe maybe misunderstood that. That means US persons, including Hassan, are not allowed to lodge there. The legal workaround most Americans use is staying in privately owned casas particulares, small family-run guest houses, not on the list under the fully permitted under the support for the Cuban people category. So that makes sense. Critics, including Cuban exiles, other travelers, and commentators, I think you probably cut yourself among that list a bit, have pointed out that choosing a prohibited 5-star hotel during a blackout and energy crisis in Cuba comes across as tone deaf, especially for someone framing the trip as humanitarian aid. Yes, the exact hotel is known and widely reported, and one of the properties US tourists are officially barred from using. It's so funny. That's why the story blew up so quickly. If you want links to the current officially prohibited list, now I have it. Go to the hotel, don't need it. Or help finding truly legal private hotels. I'm not traveling to Cuba anytime soon. Thank you, though, Grok. That is interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that after them saying we had to specifically find one that was allowed, that they specifically went to one that was disallowed. That's pretty dumb. And I doubt anything will come of it, but it sounds like someone in the US, the government perhaps, could prosecute Hassan for that. That is so fucking dishonest, though. We were watching this video, weren't we? I don't know where she stayed, incidentally. But I think Hassan was part of the convoy, wasn't he? So Maybe they were all saying the same one.
I'm just back from Cuba.
Okay, where did you stay?
The U.S. insists that U.S. visitors stay in either individual homes like Airbnbs or in foreign-owned hotels. So we had to stay in one that was owned by Spain. Why didn't we stay in individual homes? Because we had 170 people in our delegation. Impossible to stay in individual homes.
No. Just spread them around to different homes. I mean, you could do that if you didn't want to, but they do want to. But now you're going to get, well, these guys might have stayed at one that wasn't on the list. I don't know. They're not saying which one they did stay at. I guess I can ask Grok, though. It might know. Thank you. Wasting some of its time, some of the processing time by saying thank you. They're very, very based. Do you know where the Code Inc. delegation stayed? We'll see what it says about that. Come back to it in a minute.
We also heard ridiculous lies that the medicines that we brought were being sold by the government. They're going directly to hospitals, a lot of it to pediatric hospitals.
Look, the moment you left the hospital, I'm guessing that they were taken to wherever they needed to be. Like, the hospitals are run by the government, just so you know, in case that wasn't clear. That in itself is not inherently wrong, but when it's run by the Cuban government, it becomes a bit of a problem. So, hold on, what did she say exactly?
Were being sold by the government. They're going
sold by the government, okay.
A lot of it to pediatric.
Yeah, that doesn't disprove the claim. I haven't seen proof that it was being sold by the government. Maybe 8-bit has. I don't know. But if it went
I don't have exactly proof, but it is common knowledge that the Cuban government will confiscate any supplies, including children medicine, like anything for children, even diapers. They're sold 3 times the amount to the Cuban people.
I don't doubt it. But I haven't seen evidence, although I suspect from what Abit says is true. But more to the point, what she's saying here is we gave it to the hospitals. That doesn't mean it wasn't sold. It just means that it went through a layer before it was. You can't just go to other countries and expect them to work like your country. It's different there.
It's like, bitch, you got receipts?
Yeah. You can't really know unless you've seen them being used on patients. 8-bit, Nachos has raised an important issue. If Matthias was to free the Cuban people, you know what? I'll leave it. Let's move on.
Hospitals, to neonatal units in those hospitals. Give me a break. The other thing that they've been saying is we used electricity. We had a generator in our hotel. Yes, there are generators in the hotels. We used a minimum amount of gasoline. In fact, we only used buses to go from the airport to the hotel and back again. We encouraged all the people to walk and walk and walk.
Where did the gasoline come from if every country is trying to prevent oil getting in? I guess they still had some. Interesting that it went to you guys. Like, the fact that this is actually a non-optics reason for not wanting to flaunt your wealth. Every bit of electricity that you were using was a bit that the locals couldn't use. And moreover, the electricity that you're using is going to be used more flagrantly because you're used to having unlimited electricity wherever you go in Western countries. The people in Cuba they have blackouts regularly. And I imagine that while the electricity is not being ported directly to the tourist hotels, the actual amount of electricity that the average person has is very, very small. Maybe enough to keep the lights on. And so every bit that you're using, if you turn on a big flat screen TV, that's an entire family that can't keep the lights on that day, maybe. So it's not insignificant. Now, if you're saying it's generators, okay, well, that just makes the effect indirect, because now that gasoline can't be used for something else. I love how she's addressing this as if the problem is about carbon emissions. No, I don't think that's the issue at all.
And we did that every day that we were there, or use electric vehicles.
And where did the power for the electric vehicle come from? Like, electric vehicles use a lot of energy. For every single she is responding to it as if they're complaining that she's polluting the atmosphere with carbon emissions. Like, that's what she thinks they mean. No, you're using electricity that the locals could have used while there are blackouts happening. Again, that one's not just about optics. Now, one group like this using energy probably isn't going to be a huge difference to the country, but it is doing harm to some people in the country. It's reducing the amount of energy everyone else has, and flagrantly. How often did you have the light on when you didn't have to, for example?
They also said to us, well, why don't you just send the money instead of going? 2 reasons. One is you're not allowed to just send the money.
You're not allowed to stay in the hotel Hassan stayed in either. If the other reason is we don't know how the money is going to be used, you don't know how the medical supplies were used. You took them to the hospital. That doesn't mean they stayed there.
And the other is that we wanted people to go to find out what U.S. policy is doing, to get as incensed as those of us who...
Why don't you ask the locals who have left? Oh, because they would disagree with our perspective. No, you went there for this, for the photo op.
No, if you go to Miami, Florida, to speak to former Cuban exiles, you'll get your teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
Talking is over. It proven very well. Typical white liberal woman using the poor, oppressed people to make yourself as the virtuous, good person you are, which in fact, you're fucking evil. You use the situation of what's happening in the Cuban people to essentially you exploit them for your organization. It was never about saving the Cuban people or like giving them help. It was always about your image.
Yeah. Mufaki, we've already done the early life check on this shriveled hoe, as you put it. She is indeed Jewish.
Understand what's happening are, so that they'll join us in pushing their members of Congress to change things, and in doing fundraisers for Cuba to raise more donations, to buy more medicines, to send down there.
You're just propping up the tyrannical government longer. That's all you're doing. You're barely even helping people.
She did mention that she stayed at a hotel that was under Spain.
Yes,
I don't know
she
if
did
that
say
narrows it down.
I'm asking Grok. He probably knows that. The Coping delegation stayed at upscale 5-star hotels. So the other one is this one. Let's see if it's on the list. Iberostar Marks de la Torre. Not exactly. Iberostar. Let's try with just that. Marks no. There are similar name ones on the list, but that specific one is not on the list, interestingly. Maybe that one is actually owned by. So another 5-star hotel in Havana, a PolitiFact report citing convoy organizer states that the larger 170-person group stayed here, with Code Pink opting for hotels due to group size capacity needs. Medea, Benjamin, and organizers have been tied to this in coverage. Yeah, so some delegates, including Hassan, stayed. So the first one, Grand Hotel Bristol Melia Collection, that one is on the list and illegal, but under a slightly different name, which is maybe where the confusion came from. If so, that's an amateurish job by them, or they fucked it up. And the other one I couldn't find on the list. So maybe the other one is allowed. Grand Hotel, some resorts. Both hotels are large, government-linked or regime-affiliated properties and appear on the U.S. Department of State. Do they? I couldn't find the second one. This makes them off-limits for U.S. persons. Organizers claim limited legal options existed, and these were among the few hotels with capacity for large groups, but this has been widely disputed. Private casas particulares remain the standard legal route for Americans. The story gained traction because of the optics. As I said, delegation delivered humanitarian aid while staying in air-conditioned luxury and reliable power and internet amid Cuba's third major blackout of the month. If you're digging deeper for your own planning, not for my own planning, no, don't worry, Grok. Vetted private accommodation, yeah. I couldn't find that on the US disallowed list. Are you sure it's there? Perhaps by another name. See, research is so much easier when I have a research assistant. Okay, so That's we'll find out. Grok said it was on the list. I didn't find it there. We'll find out though.
I want to take more people there because this is a policy that is so unbelievable, cruel, so cruel, and the U.S. people should be incensed about it. So we hope you'll join us in pushing to get past these measures in Congress to undo what Marco Rubio is trying to do to starve the Cuban people, and that's the war.
What's his motive? Why is he trying to starve his own people? People of his family, you know. I don't know how American or Cuban he considers himself, probably both. Why would he? What's his motive? Why would he want to do that? Like, to be a leftist, you really have to just assume that right-wingers are cruel, evil bastards without any positive inclination. The picture from the right is much more sensible. That the right is going for long-term good that sometimes looks bad in the short term, and the left is going for short-term good for their own feelings, which is sometimes beneficial, but usually detrimental. And that they're mostly doing it because they're a bit naive. And that's demeaning to the left, but I also think there's a benefit to that drawback, to that bad idea. Hey, she's got the Strait of Hormuz on her shawl.
Powers resolution, there's one in the House and the Senate, and H.R. 7521, U.S.-Cuba Trade Act. Thank you.
Yeah. Smoking crack feels good in the short term. Exactly, motherfucker. That's the kind of thing. Like, it feels good in the short term, but it ruins your life. And that's the kind of thing the left, at least in the modern day, tend to favor, especially when it makes them look better.
Uzu, I have one more video left. I'm sorry. I thought we were finished, but what Pug posted, this is connecting to the same video where she's located, where she was talking to Rick Scott, giving a totally bullshit story. And I'm afraid I would have to bow out, so I'm leaving you with this video. Thank you, Uzo, for having me on the stream. I'm sorry for spurting out, cursing out,
no, I appreciate
promoting violence.
Promoting violence. Hold on. Do not crime. There you go.
So I'll catch you guys later.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, 8-Bit. See you soon. Okay. We'll watch this this last video that 8-Bit linked. She knows her legs in the holly. Who are you talking about, Mafaku? You mean she's so fucking short? Okay.
They have to, according to U.S. policy, be owned by a foreign company, and this one was owned by a Spanish company. So we were complying with your laws by staying in that hotel. That's one thing we haven't. It's not our position to say what the government should be like. We were there during the Obama years when there was a flourishing of private enterprise.
What happened? What happened is socialism.
What happened is that Trump came in and put Cuba under terrorism.
Why did you guys go to the prison?
You know what? I'm not allowed to go to the prisons here in the United States. I'm not allowed to go to prisons in any other countries. Don't be silly.
Under Biden, they ran out of electricity. That was Trump's fault? Biden was president for 4 years.
Under Obama, we had diplomacy, and that was a win-win situation. Biden did absolutely the wrong thing. Absolutely.
Okay, to be fair to her, she did actually criticize Biden for maintaining the restrictions. At least she is consistent on that point. I believe it's true that under Obama, they did open up relations with Cuba somewhat. And given the country's situation, that would help Cuba. And the people wouldn't receive the majority of that benefit, but they would receive some of it. Under a tyrannical rulership like that, you tend to get the wealth accumulating near the top. What would help them most is replacing their government, as so many Cubans, most of which are exiled, want to happen. That would help way more than just giving their government more gibs from America. Not gibs necessarily, but trade, which is what Obama was doing. Obama took the strategy of just let the tyrannical government continue to be tyrannical. We'll go for the short-term good of it'll look good. We'll look like we're helping the Cuban people who are still there, even though mostly what they're helping is to keep the government intact. And the Cubans that are in the US who specifically want to topple the regime get fucked by it. So Trump is doing the right thing for probably the majority of what all Cubans in the world want, but especially the vast majority in the US and probably many in Cuba itself as well. She's consistent on opposing anything that's bad for the communist nations, indeed. I mean, that's what's under all this. Like, whether she realizes it or not, I believe her motive is just, well, if it's good for communists and communism, it's a good thing. She has assumed, just before anything else, as an axiom, communism must be good. And she's probably gained that from being an activist most of her life. Then again, that said, does she actually care about that? Or is she a hollow shell, just doing whatever gets her the most attention or money? And she's just chosen, well, the left. Let's go with the left as my target demographic. I don't think it's often that hollow. I expect that she has leanings in that direction anyway, or she wouldn't be as good at it. But to what extent is it ideology, or is it self-benefit? Probably about half, to be honest.
Senator Scott, the majority of people in the U.S. want to have good relations, not only with Cuba, but around the world, really.
If you ask in a poll, do you want our country to have good relations with X country? Depending on your interpretation, there is no country in the world they would say no to. Do you want to have good relations with China? Yeah, I'd like for China and us to be honest trade partners who don't try and subvert or destroy each other. So yes, in a sense. With the current state of China, it's debatable. Good relations are better than war, but still, it's debatable. But if you ask for, that's an example which to me would be the absolute lowest chance of me saying yes, and even then it's not an absolute no. But you ask something about a nearby nation, especially that most people in the US don't know a huge amount about. Should we have good diplomatic relations with this country? Yes. Like that's a default thing. If you ask, should we be aligned? Should we aid this country? Should we help their government? Now that's a more debatable question, but I don't expect that's how they asked it. They asked it in a certain way, and they're using their interpretation of that question as their basis. She's consistent on one of those is God's own chosen virtue signalers. Yeah.
We are so tired of the U.S. trying to impose its will on other countries.
You don't care that people are starving. You don't care they don't have electricity. You don't care they don't.
No, the problem is, mate, that even if she doesn't care really, she can pretend to care. She just has a very different interpretation of why they're starving. And I believe her interpretation is wrong, but as I said earlier, it's not something you can easily prove one way or the other. It does have a certain amount of evaluation involved, which is why she gets away with it.
I'm a nutritionist. I dedicated my life to stopping people from starving.
Socialism
And
that
I started
destroys
out
people's lives.
in the Vietnam War
You
being an
destroy
anti-war
people's lives.
activist. I
don't
only
know
do
how-
the work I do.
It's just talking over each other. I mean, the reason that people don't talk over each other usually is because of some degree of mutual respect. Otherwise, they just shout at each other. The only reason they're not shouting is because they haven't escalated to that level yet, and also because they want to appear good for the cameras. That's the only thing keeping them from just constantly interrupting each other, is wanting to appear good for the cameras. However, she's interrupting way more than he is, to be clear, to be fair there.
Because I care
I think
about
it's
people.
disgusting that you go support that communist regime that's destroying people's lives and people I know in prison
You know
and do
what?
nothing to get them out.
What we do is we go to bring medicines and solar panels and help
Oh, they
people.
did bring solar panels.
So you support socialism?
I support people having the right to determine their own futures in the United States, in Cuba, in Iran, anywhere else. You know what? You want to focus on the small group in
I want to
Florida
focus on
that
all other
wants
people.
to strike.
The group in Florida is not small. How many Cubans live in Florida? 1.6 million people. Population of Cuba, 9.26 million. It's not that small. It's a fairly significant portion of the population, and it's specifically the people who oppose the government the most. Their population, by the way, is declining very fast, probably due to people leaving. But yeah, I did think that there were more in... Okay, so another 40% of the Cuban population in the US live outside Florida. Still, it's a lot of people, and these are the people who you have direct contact with. who can speak freely about what happened to their country, they are the ones I'd be listening to.
How about all the people in Cuba that don't have opportunity
How about
because
all
of
the,
that
how about all
government
the
story?
babies that are dying right now? Cuba used to have a better.
Right, so here's, again, like the tough truth. If your two options are keep all the babies alive, but keep the country in destitution forever so that they become completely dependent on your aid for any of them to survive, or some tragedies and horrors occur in the short term, and then a few years from now, they can keep their own babies alive for decades. It's a really tough call in the short term, and everyone who makes a call is going to look bad, especially if they make the long-term focused call. But we're not dealing with individual cases here. If we were dealing with a small group of people, it would make sense to do the thing that is beneficial for the small group of people. Even then, you might want to think about the long term. We're dealing with entire nations here, where the number of deaths is not either zero or some. There's always going to be some. There's always going to be some babies dying, as horrible as it is. But the strategy that focuses on the long term reduces the total number of babies that will die. Your strategy reduces the number of babies that will die today, but maintains the number as high as possible into the future, unless charitable work like this continues and probably increases. Because again, for most populations in the world, if you give them the ability to survive when they otherwise would have starved, there's more of them. Then the charitable work is inflated. That's why charity doesn't really make sense to cultures that do that, which is most cultures around the world. Whites don't seem to do that anywhere near as much. And I don't know about Asians, actually, with that. Indeed, Nachos. That's the really hard position to take with these kinds of questions, is that the long-term better approach that will produce the best outcome overall across time is usually painful in the short term. Which is why a lot of people were willing to, well, I said I defended tentatively Trump's big, beautiful bill, and it was tentatively, because it was a big spend, but it's just the kind of pattern you'd expect, where if it's going to the exactly the right things, then it might be better overall. As it turns out, that's been a mixed bag. The debt's gone up a lot, and it's debatable whether the country is really fixed. I think many things are better, but many things still to do. Still, yeah, such as all of the ones who die by ensuring others won't. It's there's a pattern as well. To make this back to individual, actually, there's a pattern which I have read about. Yes, I have read occasionally in my past. I believe this was an audiobook, but still, I could have read it as a book, which it's similar to this, not exactly the same, but with males, for example, if you essentially keep a fellow male as a pet, i.e., if one male is wealthy and another male is not, the wealthy, and not is very, very unwealthy, the wealthy male pays the other male to be his friend, basically, his associate. Maybe there's some amount of genuinity there. It's not completely fake, but lavish praise and niceness. It would be nice to them as possible, give them money, but in so doing, you completely remove their agency. There's one historical example. I can't remember who it was, but it was in a book called The 48 Laws of Power, or Laws of Power, either way. It was a very, very good book, actually, where this was done. And the pet, as it were, the friend, the paid friend, killed the guy that was paying him, murdered him. Now, this is not going to be the case with all people, not even all men. But that mechanism does exist. Because if you take away someone's agency, that is, you take away the agency of an entire nation, that is probably worse than not preventing the deaths of a number of their citizens. It's completely pathological. If we're looking forward 10 days, then her strategy may make sense. Even then it's debatable. But if you're looking forward 10 years or 100 years, absolutely not. And that's why conservatives often look evil, because their strategies are sometimes painful in the short term, but actually beneficial overall. And sometimes that's a gamble, sometimes it doesn't work out. But it's that kind of strategy which produces civilized societies, the long-term focus, even if it's painful today. In fact, you go back all the way. There's the Cain and Abel story in the Bible. I don't believe it literally, but I believe it's a good lesson. One of them, I believe it was Abel, sacrificed generously, and Cain sacrificed poorly. Abel was sacrificing animals, which are much more valuable, and Cain was sacrificing just fruits and nuts and cheaper things. Abel was favored by the Lord. Now, if you interpret that, literally, I think it actually destroys the lesson somewhat. But if you interpret that as a metaphor, which is probably how it was originally meant, then you get the idea of sacrifice in the short term does produce better outcomes. Now, literally sacrificing animals is not beneficial, in my opinion. There's no benefit to it at all. But it does instill the tendency, the willingness to sacrifice in general. Sacrifice in the short term. Be willing to do that and reinforce that willingness by doing it when it's not useful. And people will tend to be willing to do it when it is useful. That's my suspicion of why the sacrificial practice emerged, including, by the way, in middle Native America. What would it be? Mayans, Incans, Aztecs. Those, when they sacrifice people, and it's much more extreme version of the idea. But I think it's that. It's to instill the idea that sacrifice in the short term is good, and it's all throughout the letter. It's all about appealing to God, which is their version of what I believe is just nature. So it's that, and that's what conservatism usually is, which is why it seems pointless or evil in the short term, but actually isn't. Abel was the first shepherd and Cain was the first crop farmer, both offered from what they drew their livings from. That's a fair interpretation. But still, I believe the lesson is as I described, even though that interpretation may be fair. Now, just as if she personally fed and gave medicine to those babies, then I believe she did good. Possibly. I mean, that's certainly better. Like, if you're going to do the short-term thing, it's not always wrong, but at least make sure it works. Don't just go there, dump the boxes in a hospital, assume they're going to use it because they would in your country, and then fuck off, which I don't know if that's what they did, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Actually, make sure the babies are saved. The number of babies that she saved from death might be 0. Given how the government there works, I don't know how many it was, but neither does she. It might have been 0. It might have been way less than she thinks. If you ask her for an estimate, it might be 10 times the number it actually was, because she doesn't know what they did with them. You go to a hospital in a communist country run by a totalitarian dictator who his lineage has been in power for 70 years, and you give them medical supplies, and you just assume that if you did it in your country or some other civilized country, that it would just be used for medical purposes, prioritizing those who need it most. But maybe it won't be. You don't know that. It's a different nation, a different culture, a different society entirely. Maybe the doctors there want to use it for that, but they aren't allowed. They'll get their families fucking executed or disappeared if they do. You just don't know. So it says that's an interpretation. That's actually what Genesis states they did. Cain couldn't offer livestock as a sacrifice because he didn't have only grain. I'm not even saying that the interpretation is not directly from the Bible, by the way. I'm just saying that the interpretation I got from it is a lesson that you can take from the story, and I suspect the intended lesson. But again, maybe that's not what they intended, but that's the lesson I take from it. I'm not using the Bible as an authority, just an example. Best option is that the person that stole it had a sick or hungry kid. Yeah, indeed. But as 8-Bit said, I believe she said, they have been caught selling medicine before. I wouldn't be surprised.
Infant mortality rate than in the United States.
And guess what?
You can't trust statistics from uncivilized countries. Even civilized countries like China, partially civilized, you can't trust their statistics. I mean, how much of what we do around the world is driven by statistics that could easily be false, where we just assume that everyone that's providing them is trustworthy as it would be from some institution in the West. And even those are not that trustworthy, but they're much more so than most around the rest of the world.
With socialism. Do you know what socialism
Babies
is done?
don't care about socialism. Babies care about health.
Again, this is short-term, long-term concerns. He's talking about the system that makes things better so that babies don't die in future. And she's saying, yes, but there are babies dying right now. Neither one of these is invalid. But her approach is only going to prolong the problem, ultimately. you could do it in a way that would reduce the prolonging, but I don't think that's what she's doing. How many blacker than Vanta black criminals are listed as white? That is often the case, yes. The fake statistics we trust from foreign countries is 100% since politicians are more afraid to be called a racist than to be good. It's going to be a lot, yeah. And that is often the case, Sick Puppy, yeah. But I don't think that's the only reason. Yeah, the story that Vil just linked is rather horrifying.
Incubators.
Okay, that's it. This was posted by. Okay, this posted by. I don't know. I think the video was produced because the pink color. I expect the video was produced by Code Pink or someone affiliated with it, which is probably why the clipping is not very favorable to the senator here. Now, to be fair, if you're in a real situation with an activist that's constantly talking over you and they're trained to do this, it would be difficult to marshal your points to be the kind of high quality that you could do if you had time to plan it out. Still, his points were fine, but they were a bit shallow. It was all just kind of socialism bad, which is true, but unfortunately didn't make as much of an impact because her points are easy to understand. Babies dying, we went there to give them stuff. But the details are a bit different, I expect. Okay. Well, we are out of Cuba stories for now, as far as I know. What I'm probably going to do, chat, is I'm going to take a quick break and try and fix something. Actually, I don't know if it's even worth bothering. I think we could just say that today was the Cuba stream. It's already really late. We could just wrap it up there, but we'll do community stuff instead. We could wrap up the Cuba stream there and then go and do some hosel-bozzle in Cabal. So if you're watching somewhere else, because it's already late. If you're watching somewhere else, like on Twitter or YouTube, then come join Cabal. I'm not sure we'll do that because we've only been going for 2.5 hours. We could do a few more stories, but I'm having this issue where OBS is really laggy. I'm sure that you've noticed it. I don't know why. I did change something with the encoding, but I've undone it and it's still laggy. I was going to try and turn it off and fix it, but then YouTube will break, and so will Twitter, I expect. Because if I need to spend a few minutes doing it, then it will break. So I'll tell you what, let's do it this way. I will stop the encoding on OBS and I'll start the stream again, but the stream may not come back on Twitter or YouTube because the stream falls over if you stop streaming to either of them. So come join Discord if you want to watch the rest of it, and we'll do some more stories. We'll do at least half an hour to an hour of more stories. I have lots of other stuff to cover, stuff that we didn't cover last stream, and some other interesting stuff. Yeah, that's not it's not a Discord issue bug. I don't know if I said Discord. I meant OBS. OBS is really fucking laggy, and I don't know why. So I might try and fix that quickly, but I have to turn the stream off to do that. So yes, if you're watching somewhere else, go to cabal.oozly.net, or if you're on Twitter, just click on my bio. There's a link to Cabal there, and come and watch over here. Or you could watch on Rumble or Kick, which I will also send the stream to, which should actually work. But if you're watching on Twitter or YouTube, I may not send the rest of the stream there because the stream will just die and I have to create a new stream on both platforms. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to try and fix this and then we'll continue after that. So thank you for joining if you're on those platforms. Otherwise, stick around. I won't be long. And then we'll do some more stories after the break. God, it's so fucking laggy. Okay, so we'll stop stream, stop recording, and I'll try and fix it. So I tried to change my settings to be better for recording, better for editing the recordings, because the editors that I use don't like certain encoding settings. Can I edit these settings, please? Why can't I edit these settings? Oh, it's still sending.